From sunny San Diego, California, knockout stage play between the Haudenosaunee and Hong Kong, China. The winner of this 3-seed v 14-seed matchup goes on to play Japan tomorrow in the quarterfinals. Hi everybody, we thank you for joining us tonight. Alongside Nick Ocello, I'm Cooper Perkins, and this matchup is going to be fun for many reasons, but chief among them, the contrasting styles between these two clubs.
Something that you'll see even in warm-ups, with Hong Kong China coming out over an hour before the opening face-off with a structured and regimented stretching routine versus the Haudenosaunee, who can make something as simple as partner passing a canvas to paint with their creativity and great stick skills. Certainly an exciting matchup here tonight.
Speaking of sticks, you see both Zed Williams and Oakley Thomas, 36 and 15 in white, sporting the traditional wooden poles. Zed has done that before each Haudenosaunee game through the first possession before then switching out. Jack Van Valkenburg for the Haudenosaunee is set to get his first start, as the Haudenosaunee wear white as the 3 seed and the higher seed in this matchup in one of 2 nightcap games. Wilson Wong is the starting goaltender for Hong Kong China, who makes their first appearance in the knockout stage after finishing 27th 5 years ago. They needed a dramatic win over Mexico to get to this point. They had to beat Mexico by 6 or more. They got that 6th goal on an empty netter with less than 2 minutes left. For some reason, Mexico decided to double, trailing by 5. But nonetheless, Hong Kong China takes the gift. The Welsh are left at home. They are knocked out and did not make the playoffs as a result, as this wraps things up and sets us up for our quarterfinals tomorrow. Brooker Muir and William Jean to face and start us off. Notable that Jeremy Thompson likely will not see a whole lot of action tonight. He played more last night than they wanted him to, given the close nature of the game against Australia. First possession belongs to Hong Kong China off the face-off win, and they're going to need to clear the ball and hold the ball if they have a chance to win tonight. We've
seen a bit of a script for upset so far here at the World Lacrosse Championship, and that is maintaining possession and clearing efficiently. So certainly a good start by controlling the initial face-off, but can they clear and can they do it consistently all game? That is the challenge for Hong Kong China.
Interesting to see Wong, the elder of the 2 Hong Kong China goaltenders, get the start. He's in his 3rd Men's World Championship, but has not started and has hardly played through pool play. Trotting across, Evan Mock-Lemay at a Grand Junction, Colorado, defended by Kyle Jackson. Starting offense for Hong Kong China, Logan Ip is the man that makes it all go. He wears 53. He's flanked by Kelvin Mack and Evan Mock-Lemay. Starting attack, Dash Sai, Wesley Wong, and Keith Sang. Oakley Thomas, Zed Williams, Blake McDonald, Ron John, Kyle Jackson, and Jacob Piscino for the Haudenosaunee. Jack Van Valkenburg between the pipes. Logan Ip, who plays collegiately in the U.S. at Harvard, was once committed to Notre Dame but switched his commitment. Rolls back, shoots, and misses wide. Backed up by Wong, stays with Hong Kong China, but a good first look.
He is the do-it-all player. We saw just a glimpse of his quickness and his ability to stop and cut on a dime. You combine that with his right and left hand ability to finish. He is the player to watch here today.
Mock-Lemay was their leading scorer 5 years ago. Van Valkenburg steers it aside. Chased down by Tony Ko, who's back into the lineup for Hong Kong China after missing the final 3 games of pool play. Scored in their opener and was out of the order for them. So Logan Ip goes back behind the net, followed by Ron John. Makes him fall down and just misses wide, but a great move by Logan Ip to create space for himself.
Logan Ip is a special, special player. I was talking to the assistant coach at Harvard, Will Corrigan. He had high praises for Ip, calling him one of the best players he has ever coached, and he's proving why here in the first quarter today.
Evan Mock-Lemay flying down the lane and not able to get it on cage.
And if you're Hong Kong China, this is exactly the start that you wanted. Not only controlling the opening faceoff, not only clearing, but getting a nice long possession to settle in and getting your goal scorers, Evan Mockleme and Logan Ip, settled and acquainted with how this Haudenosaunee defense is going to slide, recover, and how they're going to take advantage of them all game long.
Ip bodies, leaves it for Sai, who hums it wide, backed up nicely by Evan Mockleme, and he will slow things back down, inverting Blake McDonald. Mockleme scores! Hong Kong China is on the board first. It's 1-0.
What a start for Hong Kong China. They were doing it all, initiating from up top, from behind, but eventually it's Mockleme who takes advantage of the Haudenosaunee defense, who was a little bit unorganized as he goes underneath. That slide is just a second late, and this is a picture-perfect start. We've seen teams do this all tournament long, start off hot, and now we're going to see if they can maintain this perfect game plan so far.
See the coaching staff for Hong Kong China led by longtime NLL player and champion Bob Snyder. His assistants are Dan McRae, Corbin Tao, and Jordan Wong. Counterparts tonight, Lars Tiffany, the headman for the Haudenosaunee. Chris Doctor, Vince Longboat runs the defense. Scott Maher runs the offense. And Stone Jacobs rounds out their coaching staff. Haudenosaunee wearing white, Hong Kong China wearing the black. And the Haudenosaunee will have their first possession. Heine Thompson swinging it for Larson Sundown. And Austin Stotts goes to retrieve it, but loses his footing.
And one of the interesting things, the Haudenosaunee are known to score punches and bunches, but that right there is going to be something to keep an eye on. The Haudenosaunee have the size on Hong Kong China today. It is very obvious in plays like that, but it might show up a little bit more subtly with players like Austin Stotts being unstoppable just due to his size and his ability to back defensemen down.
Haudenosaunee trying to avoid any kind of upset behavior by Hong Kong China and move on to play Japan in the quarterfinals. Japan surviving Germany, staying perfect in this tournament. On the far side, it's Matt C., chased around by Heine Thompson. Now back behind the cage, Dash Sai scored 3 goals in the win over Mexico. He had just 2 coming into that game.
And that's something that you have to watch out for. At these 7 o'clock games, the sun is going to be right in your vision. As that pass was leaving the stick, I was just thinking, maybe roll that on the ground, maybe be patient, and don't throw it to a teammate whose face is in the sun. But that's the mistake that you want to make early on, not in the fourth quarter, when when the game may be tight.
Larson Sundown and the Stotts brothers are the starting attack for the Haudenosaunee. Kyle Jackson, Brendan Bomberry, Zach Miller, their offensive midfield. Between the pipes, Wilson Wong getting his first start of the tournament. Miller jabbing his way against the defense. Hands things off to Kyle Jackson. Played collegiately at Michigan. Stotts by himself. Whips it wide of the cage. His brother Randy backs up the shot. Of course, a field across. When a shot sails out of bounds, whoever is closest when it goes out of bounds is awarded possession. Stotts has the defense hung up, and the Haudenosaunee are automatic in these spots. Stotts behind the back, stopped by Wong, and Austin Stotts gets it back. Now Bomberry has it turned aside, and Hong Kong China is going to escape with a chance to clear.
Some good looks from the Haudenosaunee right there. And that's one of the things that they're tailor-made to do. Even when you think you're playing good on Randy Stotts, he can just do a shovel shot around you, leaving you hopeless. But luckily for Hong Kong China, they stand tall.
Churn through the defense. Stripped from behind. Touched by the Haudenosaunee. This gives us a chance to introduce the first all-female on-field officiating crew in Men's World Championship history. Head official Dale Wilson, Bab Zelenai, Emma Jones, Eric Campbell, and Rob Powell round things out. Hong Kong China, thanks to a tally from Evan Mockleme, lead at the halfway point in quarter number 1 in a knockout round game against the Haudenosaunee.
This is exactly what they're looking to do, is control the time of possession. The time of possession game so important into deciding these outcomes. Hong Kong China more than happy to settle in, work it around, and be very strategic and patient about where they decide to initiate from. Don't be surprised if you see 53 get in on the action.
Dash Sai looking to feed. Here's 53, Logan Ip with a sock trick. 6 goals in their win over Mexico. Ip goes right at Ron John. Rolls underneath. Now Probes looking to move the ball back up to the midfield. It's Kelvin Mack drifting his way back behind the net. Mack bodying into Kyle Jackson, has a size advantage, and Mack tries to one-hand one at the net. Stripped and taken away. Oakley Thomas flips it to his goaltender, Jack Van Valkenburg, the current student at the University of Albany and former U20 goaltender that played the Men's World Championships last summer. Haudenosaunee in white, trailer, movement, Randy Stotts. As easy as it gets for the Haudenosaunee, and with 6:19 to go in the first quarter, they're on the board for the first time, and we're tied 1-up. You're watching the 2023 World Lacrosse Men's Championship presented by Rady Children's Hospital. Haudenosaunee, a contrast in styles, and this is what the men in white do so well.
Hong Kong China had to work so hard with dodge after dodge to get their first goal of the game, but what do the Haudenosaunee do? They do what they do best, which is push in transition and make the passes just look effortless and easy. I assure you, those split-second decisions and crisp passes have a much higher degree of difficulty than what the men in white put on your screen.
Face-off battle, even one aside so far between Hayden Churn and, or William Jean, I should say, and Brooker Muir. Long loose ball, and it's collected by Heine Thompson, who scored the game-winning goal against Australia yesterday. They were tied at 6 late in the third, but Thompson's long pole goal put the Haudenosaunee up for good. Went on to win that game 9-6, finish up Pool A play 2-2 with 2 heartbreaking losses to the U.S. and Canada by a total of 3 goals. Austin Stotts gets doubled, drifts away from it, now bodies his way into the defense. Jacob Patterson, native of Chandler, Arizona. Patrolled there by Bill Lamb. He'll defer to Thomas Hogarth of Peterborough Lakers fame in the MSL. Underneath, Sundown flips, Stotts hangs onto the ball in a triple team and then is stripped. He gets it back, and the Haudenosaunee settle things through Randy Stotts.
Been really impressed with the way Hong Kong China's played. Austin Stotts, as we see a shot that rings off the helmet of the goaltender, but Austin Stotts, number 83, so dangerous. Hong Kong China giving him the respect he deserves, shutting him down so far here today with aggressive double and sometimes even triple teams.
Yeah, that is a tough assignment, Austin Stotts. Here's Randy Stotts, his older brother. Draws a short stick. Larson Sundown hops one wide. And it's Austin Stotts backing up the shot at the 4:39 mark. 1 goal aside, Evan Maclamé opened the scoring for Hong Kong China, and then Randy Stotts answered about 8 minutes in. The 3 versus 14 matchup in the knockout stage for the right to play Japan tomorrow in the quarterfinals. Haudenosaunee in white, Hong Kong China in black. Pool A versus Pool E. Randy Stotts drops it off to Hogarth. Step down for McLaughlin. And that is a huge goal for a guy that's still just getting his feet wet in the field game.
Eli McLaughlin, one of the best box players in the NLL, catching up with him before the game. He said he's still figuring out some of these skip lanes, where he really belongs in this offense. Well, he belongs right there, posted up where he is so dangerous, so crafty. And that's what the Haudenosaunee do so well, is not only find those skip lanes, but something to keep an eye on is how they change levels That was a low to high skip pass, which makes getting into that lane and knocking that pass down so much more difficult. So good job by Eli McLaughlin, and a good job by the rest of the offense to realize that he was open on the backside.
Eli McLaughlin scored his first 3 goals of the tournament yesterday against Australia. He's up to 4 in total. Joined the team as a replacement for Haudenosaunee as he has an ankle injury sustained in the NLL Cup final against McLaughlin's Colorado Mammoth. Haudenosaunee control out of the faceoff and can clear comfortably through the stick of Jacob Piscino. Maybe the surprise star of the tournament. If people didn't know about him before, Lars Tiffany said, they certainly know about him now.
I always thought he was a pretty decent player. I didn't know that he was as explosive of an athlete and that he had the stick skills. He could very well be the X factor in some of these close games the Haudenosaunee might run into later down this tournament.
They need to get through Hong Kong, China first,
That's
and they're
exactly
putting up
right.
the first quarter challenge. Zach Miller switches hands. Randy Stotts flings a quick one and a save by Wong, robbing Larson Sundown.
I've been really impressed with this Hong Kong China defense so far, because one of the ways that you can match up, and as far as structure types, when you're going against the Haudenosaunee with such creativity, you have to put a huge premium on discipline, making sure that you're not taking your eye off the ball or your man. Hong Kong China showing the players the respect they deserve, but not backing down by any means. Very impressive start.
Hong Kong China is an interesting team to be in this spot. They have a blend of seasoned players like their goalie Wilson Wong in his 3rd Men's World Championship, but also a good chunk of players moving up from the younger ranks. 6 players competed last summer in the U20s and now are playing at the senior level. Matt C. dodging. Hong Kong China trying to work the ball around the perimeter. They had to beat Mexico by 6 or more yesterday to leapfrog Wales into the final knockout stage spot. C, 1 goal in the tournament, reverses field, looking for help. Gets it to Evan Mockleme, who draws the long stick. Ron John bodies into John, shoots high and wide. Wong there for the backup.
Gotta say, pretty impressed with Matt C., number 24 for Hong Kong China so far. Not only is he creating separation with his quickness, but to get a shot off on Ron John as he was draped all over him. Impressive start.
Hayden Churn. Mockleme takes over. 40 seconds to go in the first. Dash side. Squared up by Oakley Thomas. Swims. Sai rolls back topside. Had his hands free for just a moment, but will defer to Mockleme. He is kind of the leader on offense. Ip might be the it guy, but Mockleme is the leader. And it's C who wipes out, racing down the alley. And Piscino will give the Haudenosaunee a chance with 15 seconds. Here they come. Hold your breath. Ron John, fast break. John stings the corner. Masterful work in transition. It's 3-1.
Ron John had 60 yards of green to figure out what kind of shot does he want to end up taking. Hong Kong China saying, we will let the pole shoot because we don't want any of those short sticks attackmen to get a shot off. Ron John goes low to high, faking that he was going to shoot it at the feet before hitting the elevator to the penthouse. And that awakens the crowd and gives just a goal of insurance as they're going to take a 2-goal lead at the end of the first quarter in what's been a really good matchup so far.
Between Jacob Piscino controlling that ground ball and the goal being scored by John, 7 seconds elapsed and they covered the entire length of the field.
And it's something that goes almost not talked about enough because you have the Lyle Thompson, as we see a timeout here. So there might be some last-second magic. Oh.
Rather a violation that gives the ball to Hong Kong China. So no last-second magic. A nice fight in the first quarter from Hong Kong China, but 3 straight from the Haudenosaunee. And they're doing it in every facet. Fast breaks, quick ball movement. You get the sense they're just getting started. One quarter in the books at the 2023 World Lacrosse Men's Championship. More knockout round action coming up after this. The Haudenosaunee have arguably the best attack top line in the tournament, but the story of the first quarter, Hong Kong China's close D holding them to 1 goal in 6-on-6. The difference right now, a couple fast break goals. An impressive start for Hong Kong China despite their 2-goal deficit.
Well, and every time I thought that there was a Haudenosaunee attackman, in particular number 83, Austin Stotts, as he backs his way in, we've seen it time and time again where in my mind I'm thinking, oh, here comes the goal. That's what number 83 does. But Hong Kong China sends maybe 1 or even 2 defensemen to neutralize the threat before recovering quickly and efficiently. Their 6-on-6 defense, the most impressive part of this game to me so far.
Restraining line violation on Hong Kong China gives the Haudenosaunee their third. Rather, against the Haudenosaunee, will give Hong Kong China the ball, I should say. Excuse me, we've switched sides of the field. Wilson Wong, their goaltender, had a great first quarter with 4 saves.
Again, they got to be mindful of that sun because their game plan needs to be perfectly executed if they're going to come away with a win. And something as simple as the pass that you decide to throw on a clear being in the sun can have a huge impact on this game.
Yeah, sun setting here at the San Diego State Sports Deck. Cool evening, light breeze. Exactly what you expect out of San Diego. Retreating, Tommy Churn, all the way back across the field. Remember, in international rules, there is no failure to advance. They can take as long as they like to clear the ball. And Wong is happy to do exactly that. Haudenosaunee with a 10-man ride right now with Van Valkenburg out of the cage.
And I think that's a way to neutralize the fact that Hong Kong China is more than happy as we see another pass into the sun create a bit of an interesting situation that is going to give the Haudenosaunee the ball. But look for Haudenosaunee to get in that 10-man ride situation to force the hand of Hong Kong China, making them clear the ball.
Kyle Jackson dodging off the turnover. Jackson sweeping. Jackson draws the slide, wheels his way back around. And being chased by Kelvin Mack will move the ball back to Randy Stotts. Scored the first goal for the Haudenosaunee. The other 2, Eli McLaughlin and Ron John. The winner moves on to play Japan in the quarterfinals. Austin Stotts bullying like a freight train. It's 4-1. And Austin Stotts has his team high 14th of the tournament.
Goes back to one question: how do you game plan against physics? The mistake here for Hong Kong China was letting Austin Stotts get a little bit of a head of steam. If you press out, he can't initiate that big impact with his right shoulder. He lowers that right shoulder, initiates contact, and buries it.
We saw him do that in the USA game against Jack Rowlett. He's one of the best defenders in the world. He's put a shoulder into him, step back, and hit the top corner.
And the way that you prevent that is to press out just a little bit. And again, don't let him get a 2 to 3 yard running head start at you. Say, I'll press out and we'll go from there.
Haudenosaunee really starting to turn the heat up on Hong Kong China on these loose balls. But Evan Marc-Lemay able to collect it and push ahead into the offensive third. Hong Kong China did score the first goal of the game, but 4 in a row from the Haudenosaunee have tilted the balance towards the guys wearing white.
I have been impressed with Hong Kong China's patience and strategy on offense. In particular, Evan Marc-Lemay's bag of tricks is really impressive. He has the athleticism, and when that's matched up with Logan Ip, who I believe is not on the field.
Ip right now not running the midfield. It's Marc-Lemay, Hayden Churn, and Matt C up top for Hong Kong China. Dash side, Tony Ko. Wesley Wong, their attack. Here's Ko. Up to C, quick ball movement. Hong Kong China known for great stick skills. Very different kind of stick skills than the Haudenosaunee. It's kind of the difference between fundamentals and having a third arm.
And that's the beauty of lacrosse, is you watch the Haudenosaunee play and you see the creativity, you see, the wow factor. But conversely, you watch Hong Kong China and you see the fundamentals, you see the efficiency. And whenever you're going and talking to your high school coach and saying, Coach, what can I do to improve my stick skills? There's a little bit of everything.
Big Zed Williams got it ahead, and Jacob Patterson controls for the Haudenosaunee. 4 different goal scorers for the number 3 seed in the knockout round. Playing their 5th straight game in as many days. Had the first 2 days of the tournament off. Dodge from McLaughlin, who drifts back to the perimeter, and we'll defer to Lyle Thompson, whose name we hadn't called yet tonight. Thompson patrolling. McLaughlin, a shoulder fake. Hard to his left. McLaughlin kicked aside. Backed up by Randy Stotts. Under 10 to go until halftime.
With this Haudenosaunee offense, one of the things that you have to do your best to prevent is letting players get sweeping to their strong hand. So Eli McLaughlin with the ball, sweeping to his left. Have to do your best to prevent that.
Austin Stotts again! Off the feed from his brother Randy. It's 5-1.
The marriage of brawn and craftiness is no better represented than that right there. He takes a quick fake to the low backside before bringing it back up top. Not only did the goalie bite, but the rest of the defense bit. And that fake shot, that man right there, Austin Stotts, does better than maybe anyone else. Tricked out everybody, pulled it back up high, and a comfortable 4-goal lead for the Haudenosaunee.
Stotts was held to just 2 assists by Australia yesterday. Taking out a bit of frustration here tonight with 2 goals in the second quarter. Haudenosaunee, Kyle Jackson showing his quick, shifty moves into the offensive zone.
Credit to Logan Ip for matching Kyle Jackson's feet right there, albeit for a second. Impressive nonetheless.
Haudenosaunee are 0-8 against the USA and Canada in the last 3 Men's World Championships, including this one, and 12-0 against everyone else. They do turn the ball over on this possession, however. And Logan Ip gives a little shake on Stotts and trots it ahead. Hong Kong China trying to snap a 5-0 Haudenosaunee run. Wong back behind the cage. Second Men's World Championship for him. Around to Dash Sai, making his debut after moving up from the under-20 team. Ferris passed to the wrong side of Logan Ip's head. Rolls out of bounds at the 7:38 mark. That takes us to a media timeout here at the San Diego State University Sports Deck. Haudenosaunee out in front 5-1. You're watching the 2023 World Lacrosse Men's Championship. There is something special about this Haudenosaunee team, but if they're going to win a medal, gold being the ultimate goal, the route they're going to have to follow is quite difficult. Hong Kong, China tonight. They'd have to beat Japan tomorrow in the quarterfinals, likely Canada in the semis, and then the U.S. in the gold medal game, provided there's not a massive upset somewhere along the line. It's a gauntlet for them to run through.
It is, and if I had to handpick the most difficult back-to-back games, I think it would be exactly that. Not only starting with a sneaky difficult Hong Kong China team, but Japan, Canada, U.S. is absolutely lethal, especially after Japan cruised through their pool play, and there was even some buzz on social media about how they maybe should have been in Pool A getting the automatic bid.
Of course, Pool A decided by 2018 Men's World Championship, so Japan kind of pushing for a Pool A spot next time. Miller gliding down the alley. Now Jackson backpedals and defers to Larson Sundown. On the perimeter, Bomberry, one of the captains for the Haudenosaunee. Nice pass to Miller, the former All-American at Denver. Has top side, feeds Stotts, and it's a natural hat trick for Austin Stotts.
One of my favorite stories for this entire tournament has been the resurgence of Zach Miller. He is not talked about enough as one of the great left-handed players of this generation. He ducks underneath the contact, makes it look so easy. He always is dodging with his hands and his eyes. He was one of the best to do it at Denver, and Austin Stotts, the recipient of a patented Zach Miller initiation.
Miller, really a trailblazer in his college career, is the first Indigenous player under the legendary head coach Bill Tierney at Denver. Hong Kong China with a face-off win and a much-needed possession, trailing by 5 with just over 9 minutes gone in the second quarter. They scored the game's opening goal off the stick of Evan Mock-Lemay, but the Haudenosaunee have turned up the pressure since then. Jack von Valkenburg between the pipes as Warren Hill gets the night off after playing 4 consecutive games for the Haudenosaunee. Here's Mock-Lemay, the lone goal scorer, shadowed by Zed Williams. Haudenosaunee pack things in a little bit more, playing a zone.
Interesting choice from the Haudenosaunee right there, but I think they recognize the individual threats and want to neutralize them as best as possible. Pack it in tight, make them shoot from the outside, which might not be their strength, given their quickness and shiftiness.
Dash side, drifting above goal line extended, now bullies his way and has his hands pushed at the shot release. How much of this do you think is the Haudenosaunee trying to put something new on tape?
I would say 50-50 right now. I don't think their defense has truly settled in and gotten comfortable this game, because Hong Kong China's offensive capabilities may have surprised them a little bit. They certainly surprised me, especially that man with the ball right there.
Hong Kong China really had a breakthrough game yesterday against Mexico. They scored 14 times, by far their highest total. Around the perimeter, C swings one more. Mock-Lemay driving from behind the net, dash Sai, unable to corral the pass, and Hong Kong China turns it over.
And those passes are so difficult because not only was Dash Sai running at full speed, but when you make that pass, it needs to be right in the breadbasket, right up where the cutting attackman wants it. Otherwise, running full speed and trying to reach down low is a big ask. And even though the Haudenosaunee make it look easy sometimes, it certainly is not.
Big Jerry Stotts pushing his way away from pressure. Now Oakley Thomas being pursued by Sai. Trots it across the timeline and allows the Haudenosaunee to get into their offense. Larson Sundown coming off his second season in the National Lacrosse League. Played collegiately at RIT. Now Austin Stotts spins it for Randy and they play catch back and forth. And it's Sundown cutting to the net from Stotts.
Every player on this Haudenosaunee team is so gifted. Their stick skills, their vision, and in this case, Sundown's off-ball movement gives him just a quick window of opportunity, and it is in and out of his stick. Austin Stotts, a great feeder, and as he's been doing it all today. But blink and you'll miss it. A split second in and out, not giving anyone time to react.
Second of the tournament for Larson Sundown. Stotts now with a hand in 4 of the 7 Haudenosaunee goals. Kason Tarbell, the Cornell product, collects the ground ball. And right back to where we were a moment ago with the Haudenosaunee settling in through Sundown.
Always 2:45 cool about this tournament. Just saw some players from Team Jamaica walk in.
They're the story.
They
right
are.
Now.
The big win over Italy, 7-6. And now they settle in and get to watch some extremely high-level offense. Maybe take a few notes, try and learn a couple tricks of the trade.
The Italy team was the winner of Pool E. Patterson, a spin cycle, and Patterson! A highlight reel tally for the Haudenosaunee.
Nothing you can do against an individual effort like we just saw from Jacob Patterson. Not only gets the momentum to his left hand, but that nifty rollback before taking his hand off of his stick to defend it as the slide came before, putting it back on and getting a low to high shot off. In that 4 to 5 seconds, we saw about 10 different skill sets that he seamlessly executed. What a goal.
Patterson with his first goal of the tournament. And the Haudenosaunee with just under 90 seconds to go, stepping on the gas pedal against Hong Kong, China in the opening round of the knockout stage.
90 seconds means different things to different teams. For the Haudenosaunee, it means almost nothing.
We saw them score in 7 seconds, covering the entire length of the field at the end of the first quarter. Patterson again just scored a moment ago. The U Albany product gets doubled, flips it. A hesitation and Sundown denied by Wong. Great save dropping down, and Hong Kong, China has a chance to clear.
That's an incredible save by Wong right there. Didn't fall for the fake, got low. Very impressive.
Ho-Chek Sum racing down the field. And a timeout called by Hong Kong, China with 44.9 seconds left.
We have a timeout called by Hong Kong, China.
So this week, Lars Tiffany was kind of experiencing some mixed feelings about their performances for the Haudenosaunee. Felt like they really put everything out there against the U.S., said they could sleep well. Didn't get the win in that game, losing 9-7. But even though they only lost to Canada by 1, was kind of frustrated. He thought that they didn't bring their A game. At times, the focus wasn't all there. That's an interesting statement because given how hard they played, the number 2 ranked team in the world, you'd think their coach would have been a little happier with the result. But nonetheless, the expectations are higher. And this team looks like they have the potential to knock off one of those top 2.
I completely agree. They wrote just a couple pages of a script that could topple a Canadian team, could topple an American team, and even catching up with some of the American players after that game, they kind of had their eyes opened a little bit. They said, hey, listen, we knew they were good, we knew they were creative, but whoa, we didn't know that they were that well put together. Lars Tiffany knows this team better than any, so I think that's where the expectations come from is, hey, we take our best chance. We can beat Canada. Hey, we put together all 4 quarters. We can beat America. This team has the potential that Lars Tiffany has said is now the expectation.
This is such an interesting Haudenosaunee team too, right? Because it looks different on paper. You know, no Cody Jamieson, no Miles Thompson. There are pieces that have been staples at different points that aren't in the mix right now. But I think the surprise of their team has been the quality of their defense. They've held every team they've played to 9 or less. The only team that scored 9 was the number 1 ranked team in the world, the U.S., which is peppered with PLL stars all over the field. And yet this defense, led by Jerry Stotson, Ron John, and Jacob Piscino, has found a way to gel so quickly.
And if I were the defense, I would just ask Lyle Thompson and Austin Stotts, do you mind not scoring 500 highlight reel goals? We want a little bit of recognition as well.
Around the perimeter, it's Ip. Final 24 seconds. Ip, the Harvard player from Corona Del Mar in Orange County, about an hour up the road. Now it's Tony Coe directing traffic, being shadowed by Thompson. Skip pass from Matt C., and he does not connect with Ip as the Haudenosaunee get the ball back with 9.5 left. And Stotts catches it for just a split second, blanketed by Bill Lamb. And Hong Kong, China will get out of Dodge, trailing by 7. So Hong Kong, China open the scoring, but the Haudenosaunee with 8 straight. They are in control in the first round of the knockout stage. Halftime coverage coming up shortly. You're watching the 2023 World Lacrosse Men's Championship presented by Rady Children's Hospital.
Coaches, make sure to head over to the Johnny Lacrosse booth in the Vendor Village to get a free gift pack, including an official head of
Haudenosaunee up by 7 at halftime. One of 2 games going on in this late window. On the first day of knockout stage play, the opening round, and some other scores around the tournament. We saw some great games with a weird coincidence where a lot of teams were putting up the same numbers.
7-6. There were 4 separate games. England beats Puerto Rico in overtime 7-6. Jamaica, one of the stories of the tournament, beats Italy 7-6. Mexico defeats Wales. And Korea, with the last-second heroics to take down Denmark, all of those scores 7-6. The other one-goal game being the Czech Republic taking down Austria by a score of 9-8. And that's what I love about this tournament. You never really know how these teams stack up until it's elimination time, until they're their backs against the wall, and until they're out of their pool play. And turns out a lot of these teams are very evenly matched.
We saw that earlier today when Australia pulled away from the Netherlands and flexed offensive muscles that we had not seen from them in their Pool A play. So they move on to play England, who beat Puerto Rico in overtime. The winner of this game will move on to play Japan, who struggled with Germany in the first half, but then pulled away in the second half to stay perfect in the tournament and give themselves a shot to potentially make the semifinals if they can win a tough quarterfinal game against what looks like the Haudenosaunee right now. They're on an 8-goal run and in control with possession. Zach Miller, Kyle Jackson, Brendan Bomberry starting midfield for this third quarter. Larson Sundown and the Stotts brothers, Austin and Randy. They are the attack. Hong Kong, China opened the scoring in the first. Evan Mock-Lemay, but since then it's been all Haudenosaunee. Miller, ever the facilitator. In for Jackson, rings the post.
It's easier said than done, but doing your best to prevent guys like Zach Miller and Kyle Jackson from getting to their strong left hand in a sweeping fashion is a must-do for Hong Kong, China here in the second half.
Jackson off a little stutter step. Now for Stotts behind the net, has the defense hung up. Stotts, quick feed, and Bomberry will instead defer to Randy Stotts before playing catch back and forth. Logan Ip back on defense against Bomberry, who has a huge advantage of size. Stotts trying to fling it behind his back. They're trying to decide whether that's a pass or a shot. Knowing Austin, that's a shot without a doubt, right?
Yeah, and he's post up in a great spot, and I think he was trying to sting that top left corner. When you're close, if you miss with a trajectory of 10 degrees off, that might look like a pass.
Jackson off the hesitation, hands free! Oh. Buries the high corner.
Smiles all around for the Haudenosaunee here today as a picture-perfect textbook shot on the run from Kyle Jackson, one of the quicker players not only on this Haudenosaunee team, but in this entire tournament. Takes a jab step, creates 5 yards of separation, and it just looks natural for him to do that. Wind up, get the stick head down low, overhand sting the top right corner, and the Haudenosaunee running away with it here today.
Kyle Jackson did not score against the U.S. or Canada, or England for that matter, before having a hat trick yesterday against Australia. That being his 4th of the tournament now, after putting the Haudenosaunee up 9-1 in quarter number 3.
And that's something interesting about this team is you hear a guy like Kyle Jackson going scoreless in 3 games and then having a hat trick. Every player gets their turn in this offense, and so far it's been Austin Stotts who's been the headliner, but every player could pop off for 4 or 5 goals a game if given the opportunity.
Yeah, of course, you mentioned Austin Stotts, 16 goals in this tournament. Hong Kong, China, though, with possession. Kelvin Mack. They swing it around. Dash Sai collects it off a bounce. Just over 3 minutes into the second half. Sai patrolled by Oakley Thomas. Hong Kong, China, the second place team in Pool E. Pulled off a rousing win over Mexico to leapfrog Wales and get into the 14 spot yesterday on this same field. That was an electric game. You wouldn't think it based on the final score of 14-7, but knowing that Hong Kong, China had to win by 6 or more, every goal mattered down the stretch. Mock LeMay races out of the crowd and tries to swing it to a cutting Keith Sang.
And speaking of putting things on film, again, the Haudenosaunee can use a game like this to be a little bit creative, knowing that Japan, Canada, and the United States, and every team that's still in it for that matter, are watching what they're doing. I think we just saw a little bit of a zone, a 3-3 zone, which now teams, when they're filling out their scouting report, have to say, we got to be ready to beat a zone, in addition to their standard slide recover defense.
Give this game a chance to try some things and also get some new faces in. Jack Van Valkenburg gives Warren Hill the night off between the pipes. Eli McLaughlin, who handles the ball, getting a lot more playing time than we've seen. Jacob Patterson as well, forcing his way into the middle. Feeding for Stotts. Over to Randy Stotts. Perfection in motion. The second for Sundown.
Everybody getting in on the action, and something to note as the ball moves around the horn is just how accurate these passes are. It doesn't matter if there's a defenseman draped all over you. The flick of the wrist, 1, 2, 3 to the backside. If you're a young player watching at home, take note of the creativity, take note of the teamwork, but the accuracy of the passes was the most impressive part of that play. And I think a guy like Sundown and a guy like Patterson, we saw Patterson initiate right there, those are two guys who are going to be the primary beneficiaries of getting extra playing time in a game like this.
Larson Sundown is one of the guys on the Haudenosaunee roster that box lacrosse fans know really well, but field lacrosse fans might still just be getting familiar with. He played Division III at RIT, which is a great program, of course. The Tigers, national champs in 2022. 3 alums of RIT are on the Canada roster. But still, those are the pieces that are making themselves known. Hong Kong, China trying to crack this zone. Sang, surveyed, C, dash side, floats. Now it's Chan. Skip pass, Sang back to Sai. Under 9 minutes to go in the third. 10-1 Haudenosaunee. They've scored the last 10 goals after Evan Mock LeMay put Hong Kong China up 1-0.
Interesting to see this zone because Hong Kong China's 2 best threats are quick and shifty and like a lot of room to work with. So they're saying, hey, you can beat us one way or the other, but we're going to have a defenseman waiting for you, neutralizing some of the best threats that Hong Kong China has in their arsenal.
Dash Tsai, one of those guys that turned the corner against Mexico. Now on the far side, Sang gets bodied up by Oakley Thomas and draws the first penalty of the game.
Those aggressive approaches are always so difficult. You want to go out, you want to get on the hands, but sometimes your momentum takes you into the back of the player that's in front of you. So even if you're not intentionally going out and creating contact, that aggressive nature that you have as a defenseman, certainly a defenseman at this level, will find you in the box a couple times.
Hong Kong China goes to the man up when we come back. Haudenosaunee, first 2 goals of the second half. They're up by 9 with an even 10. And just about everyone getting in on the act. Stick with us for more of the third quarter. You're watching the 2023 World Lacrosse Men's Championship. Mid-third quarter here at San Diego State. Haudenosaunee in control. Cooper Perkins, Nick Ocello with you. Thank you for spending your evening with us. Hong Kong China comes out of the break on the man up. Up top, Logan Ip. Shot hums wide.
Good job by Ip right there to fake that he was going to make a pass to his left and then circle back to his right.
So Hong Kong China trying to snap the 10-0 run. Around the perimeter. Ko for Ip. Shoulder hit. And the penalty is released. Flying in for the Haudenosaunee and Dade Martin.
As a Haudenosaunee chant has broken out, as the supporters for the men in white get a little vocal with their support.
As Quint Kesenick says, they are always the home team. Ip on a step down, zips it wide of the cage. It's the best look they've had in a while.
Wouldn't be surprised if they try to repeat that action. Ip, certainly one of the best threats for Hong Kong China. Got to try and tee him up for some success here.
Maclamé turned away by Van Valkenburg. Still loose on the field, and it's gobbled up there by Maclamé, the man who took the shot. Also scored the only Hong Kong China goal. Steps right into one, Maclamé! He snaps the run with his second of the game.
I really like his game. Evan Maclamé, remember that name. His first shot created a rebound, which he went and got. And as the defense is getting restructured and reorganized, look at him flying in there and getting that ground ball off of the grass. He recognizes that there's just a little bit of confusion, says, no one's going to play out me, I'm going to sting that bottom right corner. Really impressive stuff from Evan Maclamé.
And Maclamé was their leading scorer back in 2018, but was held to just one goal in the last 3 games after netting a pair against Italy in Hong Kong China's lone loss. Remember, they lost to Italy 13-5 and then beat Scotland in what was an upset in the rankings, and then finished with wins over Austria and Mexico to get to this point. They have possession. Clock inching towards 5 minutes in quarter number 3. 10-2. Haudenosaunee in control. Winner moves on to play Japan tomorrow in the quarterfinals. Tough team that received their first test of any variety today. It's Germany.
Haudenosaunee sticking with that zone, looking to neutralize Maclamé and Ip's quickness and creativity. We'll see what Hong Kong China has to do about that.
Churn swings for Ferris, who scored the final goal to really put an emphasis in their win over Mexico. They needed 6. He got them there and put them into the playoffs with an empty netter.
There's a couple different things that you can do to beat a zone. My personal favorite is try and identify those top left and top right corners. You can kind of isolate. If you know that they're in a 3-3 zone and there's one player on the top right, you can kind of sneak 2 of your best stick skill players up there to play a little bit of back and forth and cause a rotation from the backside.
Who would you do that with if you're Hong Kong China?
You've heard their names here before, Evan Maclamé and Logan Ip. I think if they can isolate a Haudenosaunee defender and play a little bit of a cat and mouse game with the rest of the defense, that would be a good place to start.
Shoulder fake by Ferris, drifting beyond the restraining line. Ferris steps in, his shot blocked by John. Of course, Ron John scored a beauty of a goal in the first half on a low to high with that big long pull on a fast break for the Haudenosaunee.
Boy, Ron John got hit by that shot. Didn't faze him a bit. He ate that for dinner.
Dinner time here on the West Coast. Keith Sang over to Kei Chan. Chan with plenty of space. Hayden Churn, first appearance in the Men's World Championship. One of their 6 players that moved up from the U20s.
And if I'm watching the Haudenosaunee zone right now, I'm looking at their bottom right and bottom left defenders as there's a shot and a goal.
Sang on the turnaround. Great find by Tony Ko. And Hong Kong China has back-to-back goals.
As the Haudenosaunee were actually briefly exiting that zone, Tony Ko, the opportunist, feeds it to the inside. And Sang with the high bouncer. There's always a saying, high bouncers go, and that saying exists for a good reason, as they just find a little bit of a soft spot in that Haudenosaunee defense, and they execute, and Hong Kong China scored 2 in a row.
Saying learn that high bouncer playing box lacrosse. And here come the Haudenosaunee. Stotts, one more for Sundown, and the pass too high.
And credit to Hong Kong China, because their last offensive possession seemingly went on for 10 minutes. So now when the Haudenosaunee look to press back, not going to lie, the attackman might be a little cold.
Running clock here in international rules until the final 30 seconds of quarters 1 through 3. Then stop time into effect. Also applies to the final 2 minutes of the fourth quarter. Hong Kong China, the last 2 goals after the Haudenosaunee ripped off 10 in a row. Hong Kong China in black, Haudenosaunee in white. They stick with their zone defense. Clearly a point of emphasis tonight. Keith Sang scored the goal last time down for Hong Kong China, but throws it away this time. And a long run for Logan Ip. Cannot save it from going over and back. Austin Stotts swings it into the middle. And Randy Stotts lets one fly. Closest man to the ball, Marco Fung, the new goaltender for Hong Kong China that came on to start the second half. Wilson Wong played pretty well in the first half, all things considered, but Haudenosaunee just too good with their ball movement, their fast break play. So Hong Kong China getting both guys in the mix.
And one of the interesting things about the Haudenosaunee versus, compared to a team like USA is when they break down a defense, those shots are step downs from 8-9 yards or dip and dunks right on the crease, whereas USA has been all but content to let a guy like Brendan O'Neill shoot from 13,
Final
difference in approach.
10 seconds. Evan Mockleme with 2 goals. Ip trying to get it away. Ip whistles one into the parking lot with 1 second left. That ball might still be going. Watch out if you're on College Avenue.
I was going to say that's a college campus over there, and he just sent a projectile.
One final chance. Mockleme can't handle the pass, and the clock hits 0 on quarter number 3. But the Haudenosaunee and Hong Kong China split 4 goals, 2 apiece in the third. Hong Kong China hanging around. It's a 7-goal game going to the fourth, but Evan Mockleme breathing some life into Hong Kong China. If you notice the red shirts on the Haudenosaunee sideline tonight, it is for a good reason. Head coach Lars Tiffany sporting one. All of the players wore them into warm-ups today. They're doing so to honor the missing and murdered Indigenous women and children that the Red Dress Project tries to acknowledge and bring awareness to. As always, the Haudenosaunee, such great ambassadors of their communities and the initiatives that are important to Indigenous people all across the continent. Their red shirts tonight in honor of the Red Dress Project, the latest illustration. As we start quarter number 4, Hong Kong China ripped off the final 2 of the third to pull back within 7, but the Haudenosaunee still in control in this first round playoff matchup with the right to play Japan in the quarterfinals tomorrow on the line. And the Haudenosaunee in white will control for the first possession of the fourth.
Something interesting to watch for from the Haudenosaunee is the only complaint, if you even want to call it that, criticism, if you want to call it that, would be they've missed some easy passes. I think there were 2 or 3 drops in the third quarter that were a little uncharacteristic. So while they like to play loose and relaxed, if I'm Lars Tiffany, I'll just say, hey, let's just tighten it up. Let's make sure we're taking care of business, and let's not let anything crazy happen here tonight.
Brendan Bomberry over to Zach Miller. The Stotts brothers play catch. Here's Austin. He scored 3 goals tonight. Randy Stotts. Quick stick into Sundown and a save by Wong. He's back in for the fourth after Marco Fung played quarter number 3.
I've been very impressed with Sundown here tonight. In a roster full of superstars, sometimes you can slip under the radar, but Sundown making his presence known.
Yeah, playing instead of Lyle Thompson most of the night, and he's scored twice, nearly added a third there. We've seen Thompson. He's really been on the sidelines most of the night. His brother Jeremy has not played at all. With so much fatigue in effect, having played 4 consecutive nights against tough Pool A competition, Lars Tiffany really taking a little bit of a load management approach.
And I don't blame him. We talked about the path they have forward. Certainly not easy.
The pass from Austin Stott, swatted away. Japan sitting back, expecting to see the Haudenosaunee tomorrow in the quarters. Canada will play Jamaica, who upset Italy. Zach Miller gets double teamed. Back behind the net to Stotts, defended by Logan Ipp. All kinds of size advantage. Behind the back. Oh, Sundown just misses the hat trick. But that is what Randy Stotts does so well, his passing from all kinds of different angles.
I think he is the best ever passer at that one right there. The post up from down low behind the back. We saw him do it, and we've seen him do it over and over again.
Kyle Jackson passes up the step down, and Austin Stotts rings the post before wiping out. Three minutes into the fourth. Last 2 goals belong to Hong Kong, China. 3 for Austin Stotts, 2 for Larson Sundown. Here's Randy Stotts, and he whistles one wide into the stick of a waiting Hong Kong China defender. That's Hayden Churn who comes out with it. Kind of a business decision to throw the stick out there and just happen to catch right in the cross.
Sometimes those plays happen, but big shout out to Wilson Wong, goaltender for Hong Kong China. Certainly not easy to make stops. Had a little bit of help from the pipe. There were some misses, but he's taken up a lot of the space, making the Haudenosaunee pick those corners, which they do so effectively, but not on that last possession.
Haudenosaunee still in the zone defense they featured tonight. Hong Kong China working the ball around the perimeter. Wesley Wong swings it to Matt C. Swatted away by Ron John. And a loose ball hold on Hong Kong China gives the ball to the Haudenosaunee. And Brendan Bomberry racing into the offensive third. Here's an unsettled chance. Austin Stotts kicked away by Wong.
Incredible kick save by Wong right there. Austin Stotts, one of the best finishers in the entire world. And Wong has stood tall time and time again, not being fazed by any previous goals and ready for the challenge. Impressive fourth quarter for Wong.
Speaking of impressive, Hong Kong China has put together a nice game plan and a nice performance tonight. They led 1-0 before 10 straight Haudenosaunee goals, but Hong Kong China, coached by Bob Snyder, longtime NLL vet and former champion with the Calgary Roughnecks, very much looks the part of a team who has made a massive jump from 5 years ago in Israel to the present day. When this is all said and done, there will be a conversation had about which team made the biggest strides over the 5-year stretch. And there's going to be a case made that Hong Kong China should get that title.
I couldn't agree more. You can certainly make the case for some other teams. Puerto Rico making some noise. Jamaica and Stone Evans,
Japan,
the high schooler. Japan.
Italy, Israel.
There are a number of cases, but what sticks out to me is this game in particular where Hong Kong China, especially in that first quarter, and barring just the impossible task of stopping the runs of the Haudenosaunee, they're down 7, and I am blown away at how good this team is, this roster is, and they have the feeling of a team that when they execute at a very high level, when they get those consistent possessions, maybe they're going to put a big premium on getting the face-off game dialed in. Maybe they're going to, work on some of those time of possession things that they can do. Watch out, because they've scored the last 2 and held the Haudenosaunee
Yeah, and it all really came together for Hong Kong China in their 9-7 win over Scotland. The team said that game kind of cemented their trust among players and with their coaches as well. After that, they won back-to-back against Austria and Mexico to get into this playoff game. And they look the part of a team that is, A, committed to their game plan. Regardless of the score, they've stuck to the plan. They're trying to work possession. They're trying to find great, not good looks at the goal. And they also look like a group that trusts each other. They trust their goaltending, that they can make some stops. They trust the defense to slide. It's an impressive group.
It is, and credit to the Haudenosaunee. I really think this zone is difficult to play against because I don't think Hong Kong China was expecting it.
And Van Valkenburg with a denial on the doorstep from the diving Kelvin Mack.
How about Kelvin Mack? The courage to just take flight, go right through the heart of the Haudenosaunee defense.
Ron John, Austin Stotts, and the Haudenosaunee put the brakes on with Kaysen Tarbell bringing up the rear. Under 10 left to play. Stotts, get the sense that in a closer game he might take that shot. He's always thinking about scoring, no matter what.
Every time he winds up, I feel like if he doesn't, it wasn't a planned fake. He just pulled away at the last second in real time. So anytime the ball's in the stick of 8-3, I'm expecting it to be rifled at the goal.
Speaking of missiles, a bullet pass across the offense from Jacob Patterson. Now around the perimeter, Randy Stotts, defense caught again, and Austin Stotts runs out of angle, so he'll trot back behind the net and drag Bill Lamb with him. Back around to Eli McLaughlin, scored early in the first, dodges to his right hand. Not something he'll do a whole lot of, he's purely a lefty. Now Stotts, passed up the shot, McLaughlin. Ooh. Sundown on the split dodge. Thought he was going to take the shot. Instead, Stotts to Hogarth. And I think Wong turned him away.
Randy Stotts' pass right there is one of the most impressive I've ever seen. Double teamed.
The dodge from Sundown into the pass by Stotts, and somehow that sequence didn't end in a goal.
So fun to watch. You never know what you're going to see when the Haudenosaunee come to town, but my goodness, you know it's going to be entertaining.
Yeah, Lars Tiffany was quoted as saying he wants his team to play like the cultural jam session that they should be, and you get the sense they're doing that tonight with the passing display we've seen. Cutting to the net, Sundown nearly had a third. He's missed that hat trick goal 3 or 4 times, as that will take us to our final media timeout tonight. Hong Kong China hanging in there against the Haudenosaunee, but it's 10-3 midway through the fourth. Jack Van Valkenburg getting the start and paying off for Lars Tiffany. You're watching the 2023 World Lacrosse Men's Championship. Midpoint in the fourth quarter, and Wilson Wong's Hong Kong China team hanging in there, showing what they can do against the Haudenosaunee. Down by 7, but putting together a strong effort. You know, one thing that's fun about these late games, there are only 2 going on right now, a chance for some other teams to get out and watch some games. Austin Stotts hums it high. That one might still be going. But we saw Team Canada here. First time we've seen them on the SDSU premises, along with Australia and the Haudenosaunee and England. Oh, great work. Thomas Hogarth buries it.
That was about the 6th or 7th look for the Haudenosaunee, so it was only a matter of time. And Eli McLaughlin, again, so crafty and so accurate with those passes to the crease, made it easy for Hogarth to simply throw a half fake, place it well, and that is going to be a a goal every single time.
First goal of the tournament for Thomas Hogarth. They're announcing his name on the PA as Oakley Thomas, which is incorrect. They switched numbers to some extent. Originally, Thomas Hogarth was supposed to be 91. Oakley Thomas was going to be 84. Well, now Thomas wears 15 and Hogarth wears 84. So some confusion for you folks at home potentially. But yeah, back to finish the point. Good to see these teams get out to games. I mean, we see it right now in the stands. There are different faces from different programs walking into the stadium. Walk right past Team Uganda players, Team Switzerland players, and how fun it is to hear them all conversing in their native tongues. It's just this cultural melting pot on the campus of San Diego State right now that really is something special.
Over the course of the last couple days, you know, we've seen the haka from New Zealand. We've seen the dance parties from Jamaica. We've seen the dance parties that, you know, I believe it was the
DJ
Netherlands
sessions,
that were throwing.
the Netherlands, yeah.
And Team Uganda dancing. So just the energy is palpable. Curtis Dixon, Justin Inacio outside the gate before the game. They said they were excited to see the matchups here today.
Cutting Logan Ip. And here come the Haudenosaunee again.
Watch out.
Watch out. Tarbell up ahead trying to connect with Ndade Martin. They'll settle in to the offense. Tarbell switching back and forth between the short stick and the long stick. The guys in white tonight. 3 goals for Austin Stotts, 2 for Larson Sundown, and then a collection of others with 1 apiece. First day of knockout stage play at the 2023 World Lacrosse Men's Championship. 10 minutes into the 4th quarter. Haudenosaunee trying to put a bow on this game and move on to play Japan. Jacob Patterson, one-hand flip. Sundown, oh man. He's had 8 or 9 looks at the goal tonight. He scored twice, but you could be having an otherworldly game with a couple of those are on cage.
There's something about the Haudenosaunee. It is 11-3. Any other team, you might be changing that channel, but with this team, it is just giving them the green light to empty the bag of creativity.
McLaughlin hits the post. Good feed from Austin Stotts. And McLaughlin just looks like he's getting so much more comfortable. It started yesterday against Australia. Watching him as a major factor tonight, that's good news for them. That's one more weapon that you now have to worry about.
Caught up with him before the game, and he mirrored your comments exactly there, Cooper. He said, with every second I spend on the field, I learn more and more.
Here he is passing for Randy Stotts. Oh boy. Austin Stotts, Larson Sundown, and there is the hat trick goal. If not the first time or the second time or the third time, perhaps the 4th time. Larson Sundown finally gets his 3rd home, and just more spectacular passing.
Randy Stotts' ability to throw a behind-the-back pass is unparalleled. He's the best ever to do it, as right there, it's just so casual and so easy, and that was right on the stick of his brother Austin. The one more pass, honestly, the easiest part of that was scoring the goal. And Randy Stotts, you think you're doing a good job, you think you're draped all over him. What does he do? He posts you up and just makes you look silly. I've been there.
Now 4 assists for Randy Stotts. He's got a team-high 12. Kind of the maestro from behind the net. What a dynamic duo he makes with Austin Stotts, his younger brother. Then you mix in Lyle Thompson. We haven't seen him hardly at all tonight, but obviously saw him in Pool A games.
Well, and how impressive Sundown and Patterson have been.
Definitely. Hogarth swings one more for Patterson. Patterson, he zips one outside of the building. Over to the bathrooms at the SDSU Sports Deck. Now Randy Stotts pulls it out. Clock ticking towards 2 minutes. Backside, Austin Stotts, his 4th. as brother Randy finds him sneaking around the crease.
To the Haudenosaunee, reach into your bag of tricks, see what you find, and they're finding a little bit of everything. Supreme stick skills on display by everybody. Randy Stotts, the right-hander, putting it in his left, something we rarely see, but feeding it to the backside, his brother Awesome. But the one-handed shovel passes, the underhand passes with 2 minutes left and up 9 goals. It is still appointment television every time the men in white and purple have the ball.
Now Brooker Muir spins into the middle and is dispossessed. Ball ends up in the stick of Wong, the goalie. But the Haudenosaunee now up by 10. Thanks to the 4th from Austin Stotts, his 17th of the tournament. Randy Stotts now 13 assists. And a timeout called by Hong Kong China, their final of this second half. You know, it's just fun to watch this Haudenosaunee team play. They are a roster of brilliant lacrosse players.
And we've seen heading into halftime at the end of quarters, the smiles are stapled and plastered onto their faces, just having so much fun with it all, as they intend to do every time they take the field. And credit to head coach Lars Tiffany, not only giving some of the pillars of this team, like Lyle Thompson, a little bit of a rest, but I wouldn't be surprised. We talked about how it might be to throw a little extra something on film, but the zone defense is certainly less stressful on the body than having to chase around a guy as quick and shifty as Logan Ipps. So a strategic decision maybe to save the legs of the players.
And now if you're Japan, you're sitting back watching this game going, oh, we probably knew we were going to have to face them anyway, but now we get arrested Lyle Thompson and Warren Hill and Jeremy Thompson, and those guys are just going to be a handful tomorrow.
They are worth calling out. 1 day of rest does not recharge 100%, so depending on how banged up, how fatigued, and every team's dealing with it, not just calling out the Haudenosaunee specifically, how much can you recover in those 1 day? Get in the ice bath, get those ice bags on you, and hydrate.
Hong Kong China with just under 90 seconds to go. They've put together a great performance, but understandably, it's not going to be enough to win the game. Tarbell, Cornell product, heaves it a bit too far, and Hong Kong China, if they can corral this, might have an opportunity. Kelvin Mack floats his way into the box. Sai on the perimeter, back to Mack. Under a minute left. Keith Sang. Chan on the back cut, and the Haudenosaunee get it back and can kill the clock if they like to. Playing pinball for a moment, and Dade Martin. Austin Stotts gets it back, and with less than 40 seconds to go, he'll send a big old rainbow pass to his brother Randy. The two of them combining for a cool 11 points tonight. And a chorus of happy birthday breaks out. I admit I have no idea who they're singing to.
Well, you were talking right over when they said the name in the song. I was ready to hear it and identify it. But
it could be someone in the stands. It could be someone on the field. And with this, the Haudenosaunee move on to the quarterfinals. They'll play Japan tomorrow with a chance to push on to the semifinals. Austin Stotts leads them with 4 goals and an assist. They didn't need to do too much, and they didn't. They stuck in the lane that they've carved for themselves as being the ultimate creators with so much ability to make things happen. They were able to give some nights off to Lyle Thompson, Jeremy Thompson, and Warren Hill, and obviously earn this step into the next round.
A tale of two halves, though. The story is going to be they won by 10. It was pure domination. I would counter that with it was not pure domination. as Hong Kong China struck first and played a good first quarter before ultimately the creativity took over.
One final time from the SDSU Sports deck for Nick Ocello and our entire excellent production crew. I'm Cooper Perkins saying thanks for watching. We hope you'll tune in tomorrow to continue the coverage of the 2023 World Lacrosse Men's Championship. One last time, the Haudenosaunee win 13-3 over Hong Kong China. We'll see you next time. Keep watching on the ESPN family of networks.